What's real? It's what you feel. That's real. Yeah, that's real. I know you like it because you know when that's real. I know you like it because you know when that's real. And that's gotta be what you feel. You gotta open up your mind.
Good morning.
You gotta open up your mind to what you feel. You know what is
Good morning.
real. You know how you should feel. Come on. That's
Good
real.
morning.
And everybody give a place. That's real. You know, this is what I feel. It's definitely coming out.
Good morning.
It's like that's what's real.
Good morning.
You gotta feel. Come on. You know, feel.
Good morning. Good morning. And good morning to you all. Let's get this technology working for us. Give me a moment. Let me make an adjustment or two. There we go. Right, here we go. There you are. That should solve that little problem. There you are. There you go. And let's get this turned off as well. There you are. Good morning, everyone. How are you all on this beautiful, beautiful day here in London town? I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling alive. I'm feeling so wild. Yes, I'm alive. So it's the Motivator Show, usually alongside Lady Chelsea, but she's taken that PhD. I'm still on the lookout for a young lady who wishes to sit alongside me while she's taken her PhD. If you're interested, please contact me. I'll give you that number. It's 0208 133 5616. Please call anytime. I'd love to talk to you. This is only for young ladies from their particular perspective. It's important to complement my more male masculine perspectives. Really important to maintain my heart. So that's a big shout out for at least a temporary person, temporary young lady to be an assist on this show. Keep a lookout. Before I begin, I want to give praise and respect to Iron King. Praise be to Iron King. You've taken us from night to day, and your music was beautiful. I was listening to it these past 2 hours. Really, really informative program. And those of you who've not listened to his program, yes, it does come on early in the morning. I believe at 2 o'clock in the morning, but it takes us right through to 8 a.m. to the beginning of this show. Worth listening to. Praise be to Iron King. Long may you continue in your outstanding works. But before I begin the show formally, I want to just remind you, this is galaxyafiwi.net. That's the radio station for which this program is transmitted. And yes, we're also transmitting live via YouTube under the Motivator Show, that DE in the Motivator Show, under Facebook under the Motivator Show, and Mixcloud under the Motivator Show. Okay, but the digital radio is galaxyafiwi.net. I want to give praise and respect to the visionary leaders and founders and management of Galaxy Radio. I want to give a special praise and respect to Chipa Kombabai, the founder and visionary leader of galaxyafiwi.net. Praise be, my chief, praise be. I give praise and respect, of course, and recognize Elder Erakute. My elder, I hope all is well with you. I want to give recognition to Dr. Aman Abu Ratata and his wonderful wife. I hope you are both well and stay happy. Yeah? Praise be, praise be. I want to give praise and respect to the longest serving pilot here at galaxyafiwi.net. That is Nickel. the most royal. Yes, I love saying that name. It seems to rhyme. Yeah, Nicole, I hope you're well. Stay strong, my Nicole. Stay strong. I want to give a special rise up and praise and recognition to the solution finder, because she doesn't moan. She focuses on solutions. She focuses on empowerment. I want to give praise to Empress Shanice, that outstanding example of African womanhood. Praise be, my Empress. Long may you stay strong and healthy, and may all those who are with you be as loved as I am by your very presence here in Galaxy Afewi.net and beyond. Praise be, my Empress, praise be. Long may you continue your outstanding works. I believe she will follow this program today. Praise be. I also, of course, want to give recognition to a really important point made by a previous guest of mine on this program, of course, Ndidi Ishura. Okay. And she pointed out that Africa's natural wealth is not in the raw materials that Africa possesses in abundance. It's the technologies that derive from those natural materials. So those natural materials or resources, let's recognize the technicians, the engineers who keep the station running week in and week out for more than 35 years. Oh yeah, I want to recognize technicians, the engineers. Yeah, we need to grow more, encourage our young to become technicians and engineers in greater numbers. You are a tremendous contributor to the community, the unsung heroes of the community. Yeah. Long may you all continue well. I recognize you. I now want to move on to the next phase of the program, which is, of course, to consider really, well, I consider it to be an important matter, and that is, of course, our health. Okay, you may see that there is an abundance of healthy food behind me at the moment. Yeah, you see it all? An abundance of healthy food. It gives you an idea of the theme for today's program. Yeah, our health, vitally important, and we're going to discuss that later on in the program. But I want to remind you all these key health messages, which all the feedback I've received suggests that we are creating a movement within the community to focus on our health, and not to be coy or shy to discuss our health. Really, really important. So I'm going to spend just 10 minutes on these vital reminders. I want to encourage you to consider the amount of sugar that you are currently ingesting into your bodies. Sugar that we are taught as children to eat in vast quantities in sweets and other materials. But I ask you to consider the amount of sugar you're ingesting. Okay, the addition to those teas and coffees, you add sugar. Okay, those so-called soft or fizzy drinks that we buy, those so-called foodstuffs where they're just jam-packed full of sugar that we buy in the grocery store, those cakes and other materials. Yeah, I ask you to consider the amount of sugar and consider reducing the amount of sugar that you're currently ingesting. As the Vice Chancellor of the University of West Indies in a recent speech pointed out, that in the Caribbean, there's an epidemic of diabetes in the Caribbean. And here in the UK and Europe and in America, which I will refer to later on, there is also an epidemic, or where indeed a much higher instance of diabetes in our communities when compared to other communities. Okay. But excessive intake of sugar is the principal cause, and there are other cofactors involved, which we'll discuss later. But I ask you to consider the amount of sugar you're ingesting and the long-term impact that will have on your body. Equally, I ask you to consider the amount of salt you're ingesting. Salt is one of these insidious ingredients we add to our food for, again, flavoring. We are taught to add additional salt as children, or it's added to our foods as children. It is harmful in the quantums that we accumulate over years and decades. Hardened arteries, the rising of our blood pressure or hypertension are direct causes of excessive amount of sugar, salt in our bodies. It is vital that we curtail the amount of salt we're ingesting. It is absolutely vital. I equally ask you to consider the amount of fat we ingest, either in the form fat that comes in meat, and as you see those white streaks in meat, particularly in beef, or in lamb, which is pours off when you grill it, in chicken, I ask you to consider the amount of fat you're ingesting. And I've got to again say it again, and those I was contested only more recently, that dairy products are essentially fat, cow's fat, congealed fat. Cheese is just a lump of fat. Milk is primarily fat, lactose, fat. That's what it is. Most dairy products are just fat. And indeed, we're going to have an expert later on who will just clarify the levels of fat in some of these foods. Just fat. And accumulates in our bodies. You see these bulging arms, you see flopping off our shoulders this way, off our arms this way. You see these bulging waistlines. You see flowing over our belts, You see it on our hips, particularly in women, you kind of widen your hips, Sit on your bum, you see these big bums sticking out there somewhere, Fat. And what we do, we put undue burden on our hearts, Fat is a killer, A secretive, slow killer. I ask you to consider the amount of fat you are ingesting. I equally ask you to consider the amount of carbohydrates and starch you're ingesting, which we convert to restore in our bodies. Again, we'll speak to the experts later on. I ask you to consider the amount of carbohydrates and starch. Carbohydrates, you buy bread often each day. Wholemeal bread is infinitely better than those white bread that we buy often. Rice, I know, is staple food, but anything in excess, rice is essentially starch. We should have these foodstuffs in moderation. In moderation. And it's that moderation which is most critical to us. So I simply ask you to consider the amount of starch and carbohydrates you're ingesting. Okay. And lastly, and not least, and I want to get onto this, okay. I want to encourage you to eat more. There you got it, fruits and vegetables, fruits and vegetables, fruits and vegetables. Because these are our staple foods, fruits and untainted fruits and vegetables. No additional sugars or salt or other products, just the fruits and vegetables in their natural form. I want to encourage you to drink more water. There you go, I have my water handy. Drink more water. Drink more water. I'm told by the experts, depending upon your body mass, between 2 to 3 liters of water per day. I want to encourage you to exercise. Exercise is good. Your body craves exercise. And I don't mean a 2-minute jog around the corner. I really do mean where you're racing your heart, you're allowing yourself to sweat, your body craves this. You're made for exercise, real exercise, particularly us here in the West and so on, where we have these sort of sedentary lifestyles. For example, I'm sitting here on this chair for maybe 2 hours or so. Sedentary lifestyles are a killer, that much I can say to you. It's vital that we exercise as much as possible. It is absolutely vital. And of course, it's so important for us to have consideration of our mental and spiritual health. If in doubt, please, I say to you all, please seek help. Please do not suffer in silence. Please do not suffer in silence. If in doubt, go to your doctor, your GP, or seek the counsel of that person who is suitably trained in the subject. Please do not speak to other random persons. Speak to a trained professional. If in doubt of your mental health, please seek help. And our spiritual health, I would encourage you all to meditate, to allow the cares of the world to push away, to taking deep breaths, close your eyes and allow yourself to meditate, to be at peace with yourself, to raise your inner energy so you're able to face the day with vigor, with confidence, with the mightiness that's in part of you, and you believe you are mighty. Raise your spiritual health. But if in doubt with your mental health, please seek professional advice. And again, as a previous guest has pointed out to us, it's important, having said all what I've said, to also consider your sexual health. Very important. If you're a couple coming together for the very first time, please, why not go to the local sexual health clinic? Okay, and both of you have yourselves tested just to make sure you're fully screened, there are no infections lurking in the background. Those of you who've never been to a sexual health clinic or never been tested, let me positively encourage you. Let me positively encourage you to go to your sexual health clinic or go to your GP, and he or she will refer you on to your closest clinic. Or where in that part of the country where you have it registered, go to sh24.gov. Yeah, sh24 is the online sexual clinic which some areas have signed up to. Let me positively encourage you to do so, because each of what I've mentioned thus far, we have unusually high levels of illnesses in the community because we do not discuss this enough. Yeah, coy about our sexual health, very coy about this, We've got to get beyond such things, get beyond such feelings, and get ourselves tested so you know for certain what is your sexual health status. Vitally important. Equally important with the sugars and salt, the carbohydrates and starch, the oils, the fats that we're ingesting. Regularly get yourself tested so you understand the levels of these chemicals in your body, so you are best able to respond and defend yourself, for yourself, your family, and those around you who love you. Vitally important, a vital act of self-responsibility. The reparations begins with self. You taking control, you taking responsibility. Okay? I hope those messages are getting across. In fact, I know they are getting across based upon the feedback I've been receiving. So I look forward to those positive feedbacks and later on in the program. And I do hope that those of you who are unsure seek professional advice. Okay, the exercise, I cannot understate the importance of exercise to you all. Far too many members of our community are not exercising. I have to say, we are not impervious to all of these maladies that pervade the communities. Okay, we are just human beings like everyone else. Okay, anyway, I'll pause there on the subject. Any feedback? I welcome your feedback, particularly after hearing from our guest today, because of course the theme today will be our health. Okay, and there's a specific theme we want to look at because there are particular instances which I want to give note to. But I also want to give a real big shout out to some of our previous guests on the show. And it is quite important, okay, because what I'm noticing is that the shows themselves are resonating with the community, and I want to make sure that we continue to have that impact. It's important that the quality of each show, it's a challenge, the quality by way of the information content continues to increase. But there's a challenge, I can tell you. I have other duties, and those of you who are familiar with local government here in Britain, we've just had the elections, and I'm pleased to say, alongside a record number of Labour councillors, I was re-elected. So I'm proud of that, and I thank all of you who helped in the campaign, and particularly those who were able to vote for my good self. Thank you. But if I may, just go back to the past contributors to the show. I want to give a big shout out to Josephine Namusi, the founder and leader, interesting title, of the White Allies movement. I know that title resonated with tens of thousands of you out there. Okay, I know that she has received quite a number of inquiries as a result of this show being repeated in other places, as a result of us being on YouTube and Facebook and Mixcloud. And I ask you, if you're on YouTube or Facebook, listening to us that way, give us a thumbs up, just so I know you're listening and you like the content of the program. And better still, subscribe, no cost. You're simply advised of the theme of the forthcoming show. But give us a thumbs up, just so I know, which means you like it, okay? So just going back to Josephine. Did she speak with such wisdom, such reverence? Yeah? A true example of an African woman at her best, thinking in a visionary manner, okay, with a clear thought as to how to change the current conditions here in Britain. Okay? And if we are to change the current condition here in Britain for ourselves and our children and our children's children, it will require collaboration, allies. Yeah. Yes, Britain has Race Relations Act. Yes, Britain has Equalities Act of Parliament. But in order for those acts to be meaningful, the people must actively believe and seek the implementation of those acts of Parliament. And a crucial act of Parliament, of course, is the 2010 Equalities Act, which seeks to protect those with protected characteristics, of which race ethnicity is a protected characteristics, because it's in Britain's best interest, economic interest, social interest, spiritual interest to do so. Communities which are truly integrated, where community members of all ethnicities work together, are better, wholesome, prosperous communities. I say it again, communities which work together with different ethnic members, race members in those communities, working together, are more prosperous, wholesome harmonious communities. Don't listen to the right-wing propaganda that will be propagated by some members of the press, some members of the right-wing political parties. Yeah? Don't listen to them because they are promoting a fallacy. We are all human beings. We are ultimately one family. And the family working together, like all families working together, are powerful units for civilization. So her vision that white communities becoming allies with ourselves as African or Black communities or Asian communities working together in common cause, common objectives, are better communities, wholesome communities, more prosperous communities, stable communities. Josephine, praise be to you. Long may your vision be perpetrated throughout the communities, and long may you continue to be successful. You were an outstanding guest on this show, and I look forward to part 2. I'm not going to give any hints as to what form part 2 will take at this juncture, but let it be sufficed. It will truly be an informative, interactive program. Watch this space. I also want to give a big shout out to that, well, I quote her so often, Ndedi Yeshua, Nigerian journalist extraordinaire, social commentator extraordinaire. Okay. So, of course, that program only a few weeks ago on the incomplete decolonization of Nigeria. And what she seeks is a complete abandonment of the current so-called constitution and a new constitution created from the people, by the people. The diverse communities that make up Nigeria, great Nigeria. So we look forward to further programs that involve people who are Yoruba, who involve people who are Igbo, who involve people who are Hausa, who involve people who are Fulani, and others, of course, discussing here how we can bring peace to that wonderful, diverse country that is great Nigeria. I know the challenges. I understand the horrors. I understand despair. Yeah, I understand. But let us do better than Britain, which committed mass bloodshed to create Britain. Let us do better than Europe, from the tribe of Europe, therefore responsible for the world wars. Let us do better than the emperors in China and Japan, which committed mass genocide. Yeah? Or the tribal leaders of India. Let us achieve our unity through negotiation, through patience, through understanding and being, well, we've got to display empathy for our fellow Africans. Let us achieve peace in Nigeria, using peace as our principal tool. Let's find peace between the Fulani and the Igbo, and the Yoruba and the Hausa, and the other communities that make up Nigeria. Let's use our innate intelligence to achieve that outcome. I know I'm asking a lot. I know it's a great challenge. But I'm reminded of a white man who lived in Africa, namely what is now known quite rightly as Zimbabwe. A white man by the name of Ian Smith. And those of you of a certain age, or those of you who've studied history, at least aspects of British and of course, African history, specifically Zimbabwean history. Remember what he said. that there would never be Black or African majority rule in his lifetime. And there were millions of people who believed him that there would never be Black or African majority rule in this man's lifetime. And those of you aware of the history of what was then Rhodesia, now Great Zimbabwe, within 15 years, there was Black or African majority rule. In short, when we collectively pull our vision together, when we collectively are determined, we're focused on solutions, we find the way, regardless of the odds. We find a way. And I know Nigerians, many Nigerians, I know we together with you will find a way to bring peace and prosperity to Nigeria. That is the vision we must hang on to. So Ndidi, I understand your despair. We understand your despair. But together, we can make the difference. So Ndidi Ishiwa, thank you. An outstanding woman, absolutely outstanding woman. We also want to give a quick shout out, what I've got maybe 2 or 3 minutes before my guests arrive. I want to give another big shout out, and this is really another one of these interesting ones. Let's go to the great country of Ghana. Okay, Kwina Teso Soyo. I know I haven't said it correctly, but I'll keep practicing. I know the Ghanaians are all smiling right now. Please forgive me, okay? But I want to thank Her Majesty for honoring us here for the second time on this show. And of course, what she displayed is an example of African aristocracy, visionary aristocracy that understands the necessity for African unity amongst all the ethnicities that make up who we are. No matter if you were born on the motherland of Africa, in the Caribbean or the Americas, or here in Europe, we remain one family and one peoples. And Africa, of course, would continue to suffer the brain drain. We must invest our souls, our resources in Africa. Okay. And what she brought to us is pride, hope for the future, vision, true vision for the future. I want to raise her up and say again, thank you for honoring us. We'll have you back again. We definitely will have you back again. And I say to Her Majesty, thank you. We need more of you, of course. I seek out other members of the African aristocracy across the continent to speak with equal reverence, equal vision, equal determination. I look forward to that. I truly look forward to it. But thank you, Her Majesty. Thank you. And this is truly an inspired session with her, truly inspired. And I suppose at this point, what I should say is that there are continuing to be challenges for us. And this is why I've focused on women contributors up until recently, although today might be slightly different. But I want to just give a big shout out to Jackie McKenzie, and of course, Anthony. And of course, Anthony, let me get this right. Anthony, of course, who was the Windrush Defenders, and of course, Jackie McKenzie, who's a solicitor, a legal combatant in the fight for the injustice caused by the Windrush hostile environment, created by the existing government. The existing government created the hostile environment and created despair for tens of thousands of those who were legitimately, legally born as members of the British Commonwealth or Empire, and were British when they arrived in this country, and then subsequent governments took away their nationality. Well, the consequence, as they enter their twilight ages, they suddenly find themselves without the legal right to stay in this country. Can you imagine? Some cases 40, 50, 60 years or more. How disgraceful. So we need a Windrush Act. So I want to give a big shout out to Anthony Brown and Jackie McKenzie. A big shout out to you both. Anthony Brown, who is an example of someone who suffered at the hands of the government and was almost deported, despite the fact he's been here for most of his life. Awful situation, but he fought back. He fought back. He didn't resort to guns or violence. He used his brain. That's awesome brain. And when we focus our brain, our energies on finding solutions, we become awesome, formidable forces here in Britain and beyond. Well done, Anthony. Well done, Jackie. Big shout out to you both. And we'll provide further information in future shows for those of you who are still affected by the Windrush scandals, how you can contact both Jackie and Anthony. Well done to you both. Well done to you both. Okay. Now, it's now 8:40, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to turn on my recorder. There you go. I'll turn on my recorder and now get into the theme of my show today. Okay? And I want to begin before going to my guest, who I hope is present. I believe my guest is present, so it's okay. And we'll do a sound check in a moment with my guest. I want to read an article, which was really an article I read some time ago, but was an inspiration behind this show and why this show really is important. And those of you who are in direct receipt of our usual media will know that this show is entitled as follows: African Americans on an African diet and an African on an African American diet. Oh, can my guest just put yourself on mute, please? We're getting feedback from you. Okay, thank you. So before I go to my guest, I just want to read, as an intro to my guest, I want to read a part of this article, which is the inspiration behind this show today. And I will be quick and take 2 or 3 minutes, but just listen carefully. In recent years, public health experts have acknowledged that lowering the risk of cancer among people of color in the United States, particularly the African Americans, will require diet and environmental changes that can only come about through a combination of government intervention and individual fortitude. However, questions remain about the idea or ideal foods selection which you should look for in African Americans, a group plagued by significantly high rates of obesity, heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, and other physical ailments. A recent study suggests the answer may lie in the diet of their counterparts across the Atlantic, in the rural parts of the motherland of Africa. In a study conducted at the University of Pittsburgh, 20 African Americans and 20 South Africans switched their diets for 2 weeks. In this time, the Africans consumed traditional African American foods, which included meat and cheese high in fat content, while African Americans took on a traditional African diet high in fiber and low in fat, with plenty of beans and cornmeal with a little meat. After the exchange, researchers performed colonoscopies. In other words, they took parts of your colon, okay, in both groups, and found that those in the African diet group increased the production of butyrates, a fatty acid proven to protect against colon cancer. Members of the American diet group, on the other hand, developed changes in their gut that scientists say precedes the development of cancerous cells. We want to show how diet changes cancer. We used biomarkers and looked at the proliferation rate that had been tied to cancer. Now, Dr. Stephen J. O'Keefe, the lead researcher, told Think Progress, "We were astounded by the gravity and magnitude of the changes. In Africans, the diet changes produced microbiota that were cancerous. Always happened within 2 weeks, and it was quite astounding. The more we talk about diet, this will be important for all Americans, but most importantly, African Americans," said O'Keefe, a professor of medicine in the Division of Gastroenterology, Hepatology, and Nutrition in the University of Pittsburgh. Now, I'll pause there. In short, there's a presenter here on Galaxy who would say, let your food be your medicine. This relatively small sample, admittedly, but nevertheless, important sample demonstrated well, the importance of diet if we're to maintain good health and well-being. And that's why the theme of today's show is how can we maintain good health and well-being by use of our diet as a principal mover towards this goal. So what I'm going to do now is invite my guests to introduce themselves. And can I just double check? Elijah, can we do a quick sound test with you whilst we've got you there? Elijah, good morning.
Good morning, demotivator.
Good morning. What a wonderful baritone voice you have there. How are you this Friday morning?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you so much. And I know you've also invited a guest from the motherland to join us from, I believe, Uganda?
From Cameroon.
Oh, Cameroon, I get that right, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Can I ask you to introduce your guest to me as well?
I'm not sure she's actually with us
she's
now.
Here. She's here. I believe so. Yes, she is here.
Right, okay.
Amenya?
No, Amenya is not the guest.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So she's not joining us in that case, yeah?
It doesn't look like it.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine in that case then. Let me proceed. This is well. All is well. All is well. Can I, first of all, Elijah, just ask you just to introduce yourself and just tell me and the listeners a little bit about yourself so they understand why you are an outstanding guest to discuss this most important of subjects. Go ahead.
Thank you. First and foremost, a very good morning to all your listeners.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for having me on your show.
Mm-hmm.
I am Elijah Timop and a pharmacist by profession. I stumbled across nutrition at the very, very early stages of my career. And I was astounded by my early findings of how nutrition could play a role on our health outcomes. So I've delved a little deeper into that, done a few ad hoc courses here and there, and it's just mind-boggling how amazing my findings are about what nutrition could do to our health and vice versa. So it's something that I've taken personal interest in, and I've taken it upon myself to actually educate people going forward with it.
Thank you.
That's me, in short.
Thank you. You have a wonderful tone. I might have to develop a little routine around you because, as you know, at the beginning of each of my shows, for 10 minutes, I discuss the nutritional intake, to encourage people to reduce salts and sugars and fats and so, and encourage them to eat far more fruits and vegetables. There you are. Sufficient amount of water, exercise, and of course, develop a positive outlook to life. And I believe through such combinations, you can transform your general health outlook. But Elijah, let me just pursue this a little further. You heard my my little intro, the article that I focused on. Okay. Is the outcome that was described in that article what you would have expected? Is the diet generally that we generally are used to here in the West harmful to us without sufficient due care and attention?
Indeed, and it is not a lone article out there. There are several similar publications, one of the most notable being a much bigger study carried out in South Africa. And it actually came out by accident when junior doctors discovered that during the days of apartheid, there was virtually no colon cancer in the Black populations.
Wow.
And that was because of their more indigenous natural diets. But when apartheid fell, I must apologize for the feedback of noise coming in. There is building work going on next door from me. Right. It had to happen on a morning like this. Right. Yeah. So they discovered that when apartheid fell, not only did colon cancer start to appear in Black populations, but it actually caught up with their white counterparts very, very quickly. And the only change was that Black people now started adopting white-style diets, and very, very quickly, colon cancer became a big thing among Black populations, and within a few years, it was equal levels between Black and white populations. And as I mentioned, there are several such studies around the world, all of which pretty much come to the same conclusions. And it is simple. If our diet is processed severely, that is, we're not eating enough raw, unprocessed grains, fruits, vegetables, we don't exercise enough, we don't drink plenty of clean filtered water, and we don't have the right mindset, as you keep propagating on your show, then the health outcomes are affected in a very, very negative way.
Yes, okay. So if I may then, I'm going to probe the question of the effectiveness of food, effectively of describing food as our medicine. And if I may explore it, I just want to better understand the significance of these slight changes to our diet. So I usually begin with sugar and the effects of sugar. What is the potential effects of sugar over the medium term on the human body, human physiology? What's the likely effect of sugar?
Fantastic question. And you've mentioned something that is very, very dear to my heart. I would say that sugar is in fact an empty calorie, something that we don't need at all, especially processed sugar. There is no reason why we should be adding any sugar at all to anything that we consume. The reason being, all the sugar that we need is present in the foods that we eat naturally. So adding sugar to it, apart from making it tastier and more enticing to the taste buds, it doesn't do any good, but has a lot of negative health outcomes. Sugar even if you consume very, very minimal amounts, has the potential of leading to what we call insulin resistance. Yeah, and it's a very, very interesting phenomenon that you will be amazed how it affects populations around the world, most especially our Black communities. And the reason is our physiology is slightly different to other races, and we are affected more by sugar than other races. And there is plenty of research to back that up. So sugar, if you can avoid it, you'll be doing yourself a lot of favors. And
if I may, just so I'm clear, when you say insulin, do you mean diabetes or type 2 diabetes, or what does that mean? What does that manifest itself? Just so we're clear.
Yes, absolutely. Insulin resistance is a phenomenon where we are producing insulin, but it's not having the effect of getting sugar out of our bloodstream into cells and tissues where it is needed. Yeah, so the sugar levels in blood start to rise gradually, and it becomes consistent with time to a point where we start to show diabetes symptoms. Right. And once people develop this insulin resistance, if you don't take the right action, you are almost irreversibly getting into type 2 diabetes. And we know type 2 diabetes afflicts us in very significant numbers to a point where it is actually maiming and killing us prematurely. And interestingly, it is completely reversible by doing just the things that you promote on your show. That is, eat correctly, include plenty of fresh fruits and vegetables in your diet, exercise regularly, and you don't have to run a marathon or try chasing Usain Bolt down the track. Just a brisk walk, anything that encourages a light sweat up to half an hour, 3 to 5 times a week is good enough.
Thank you. I've recorded that. I'm going to keep repeating that in future shows, Elijah. Thank you. And it's really important. And let's be quite clear. So you recited type 2, and let's give us an understanding what type 1 diabetes is, just for clarification's sake, please. Let's clarify what is type 1 diabetes.
Yeah. Type 1 diabetes tends to happen in children, and it's a case where people or affected persons don't produce any insulin at all. There are many theories why that happens. A lot of it revolves around autoimmune disease, where the body's immune system attacks itself, destroying the islet cells in the kidneys. And those are the cells that produce insulin. So there is virtually no insulin production whatever. And it leads to people now unable to handle sugar that they consume. Yeah, so that is effectively the difference.
I understand you. Thank you for that concise clarity. As you can tell, you're well trained. Further question. The other one that comes up regularly, so we've mentioned sugar, insulin resistance, and diabetes. Another one, of course, is hypertension, or indeed for salt. Let's talk about salt, the effect of salt on the body. Again, we're all used to adding salt to our foods. Do we need to? Why do we do it? And what's the medium long-term impact, Elijah?
Again, a very good question. Salt is a flavor enhancer, and we all know that, and we've learned to enjoy the taste of it. What we don't do very well is regulate the amount of salt that we consume, and we don't also use the correct type of salt. These days, we stick to pure or purified sodium chloride, which is very, very heavily refined. But we know that naturally our bodies need more minerals than just sodium chloride. So natural salt that we're used to or should be consuming is more of the Himalayan rock salt type of thing, which apart from sodium chloride also contains other trace minerals. And together they work in synergy such that it doesn't lead to increases in blood pressure and things like that. The sodium chloride on its own, one, it's not as tasty, so people tend to add a lot more of it than needed. And normally by the time that you get the taste you want, is way too high, way too much for the body's needs, and it starts to distort certain functions in the body, particularly leads to water retention and raises blood pressure as a result. And we know blood pressure is a risk factor for cardiovascular disease, and so is diabetes, by the way. So having a combination of the two is really bad news.
Right, okay. That's an interesting description. And just for further clarity's sake, I know that there are many listening who have either diabetes or hypertension. Okay. Is it reversible? The question. I know I spoke to someone before who started the show. Is it reversible? So I'm obliged to ask you that question. Is the effect of salt reversible on the body?
Absolutely. First and foremost, we've got to stop consuming too much of it. In the vast majority of cases, we can actually train our taste buds to enjoy food without that additional salt. If you enjoy fresh fruits and vegetables, for example, they can be enjoyed perfectly without any salt at all added to them. If you do like it, just a little bit is enough. Do not overindulge, and it's perfectly reversible, especially if you also include other lifestyle changes such as the regular physical activity, meditation, things that try to get rid of stressful situations in your mind. You know, those are very, very good at helping to reduce blood pressure, and we are seeing good results at people who follow our guidance and try to reverse. Myself, I'm a classical example. I'll give you a slight story about myself. A friend's wife actually had or was diagnosed with gestational diabetes and was given this blood sugar monitor, and she was terrified of pricking her finger to get blood and test herself. And I tried to teach her how to do it, and in the process I wanted to show her how harmless and how painless it is. So I pricked my own finger using a disposable lancet, and that's important because those single use or those individual lancets should not be shared by different people, because there is the risk of transmitting blood-borne viruses from person to person. A single-use lancet, and I did it, and to my shock, my blood sugar was way higher than I expected. So I was almost diabetic without realizing it. So when I identified that, I immediately took all the steps that you're mentioning. I changed my diet. I increased my activity levels, changed a few things, drank more water, completely cut out any sugar. I don't add sugar to any beverages I drink. And within a matter of weeks, I was back to normal. And I have been within normal sugar levels up to today. Same thing with blood pressure as well. I was borderline hypertensive at some stage, and to a point where my GP almost put me on medication. I said, no, I don't want to go on medication, because as a professional pharmacist, I know what that can do to me, side effects and a whole lot of change. I didn't want any of that. So I took lifestyle changes seriously. And again, within a matter of weeks, my blood pressure was back down to normal parameters and has been there for the last 10 years at least.
Long may stay so. And thank you for sharing that personal testimony. It is good when you have a health professional who's gone through the same experience as us mere mortals may well experience. And I have friends and other family members with similar conditions, and they've not been so fortunate, which is interesting. Thank you. Can I just quickly move on? And so we talked about salt and sugar. Just give us the likely impact of carbohydrate and starch, which are very prevalent in our cuisines. Okay, But first of all, what are the benefits or indeed the possible negative effects of excessive carbohydrates or starch in our foods that we intake, please?
Great question. Carbohydrate is the main source of fuel for our functioning, and practically all diets contain some form of carbohydrate. The trouble is we process our carbohydrates so highly these days that it becomes almost pure sugar. And by that, I mean the fiber in it is largely removed, or the cooking process effectively destroys the fiber to an extent that the minute you consume it, it becomes like a simple sugar. And the glycemic index increases as a result. Glycemic index is effectively how quickly a food product releases sugar into your bloodstream. So the higher the glycemic index, the worse the food product is. And processed foods in particular, the muffins, the white breads, the cakes, and so on, which a lot of us enjoy these days, tend to be very, very high glycemic index foods. So they release the sugar very, very quickly into our bloodstream. And then what happens is we get that high sugar pangs. Yeah, so very, very quickly our bodies release insulin to try and deal with that. And the result is it brings it down a lot quicker than it should. If it was a more natural fiber containing food, for example, if it was a partly ripe banana, not very ripe, maybe a plantain, a yam, potato, and so on, that is not excessively boiled, then it's mixed with naturally occurring starches, fiber, and so on, which slows down the release profile of the sugar. And so you only get a small amount of insulin, which performs its function over a prolonged period. But if it is that quick release, then you also get a very high dose of insulin released into your blood to deal with that. Then it pushes all of that sugar into your cells and tissues within half an hour to 45 minutes. Then what happens? You start to feel hunger pangs again. And the next thing is you reach out for that chocolate bar or that muffin, and the process repeats itself. And that is where the trouble is. So if you enjoy carbohydrates, go for the unprocessed type. Those naturally present in foods, grains, the tubers, and so on, and avoid the highly processed type. And what we also realize is a lot of us consume way too much carbohydrates. As a matter of fact, the amount you can hold in your fist is about the amount we need in a meal. Any more than that, you will be consuming way too much, and it's likely to cause you problems. You also solve the problem partly by including a lot more fibrous vegetables with your carbohydrates. So the salads, the cabbages, the broccolis, and the bell peppers, carrots, if you enjoy them, eat them as raw as possible or lightly boiled, because the more you process it, the more you turn it into a simple sugar, and it just makes the problem worse.
Beautifully described. Beautifully described. I could not do this better than you for obvious reasons. And I've got to say, you've said a handful. I have to admit, I eat far more than that. Now, that's an interesting one. So before I go on to oils and fats, let's just talk about the meal sizes. Because I know, having spoken to other nutritionists, meal sizes is a big issue. Is it true that we tend to eat far too much? And is there sort of a calibration that we should be using, either in terms of weight or volume, that is easy for us mere mortals to interpret, that clearly identifies the quantum? I see a fist seems much too small to me. I'm not sure I can go to reduce my meal to a fist, mind you. But give us how could we calibrate this? How could we calibrate to ensure we don't eat too much? What were your recommendations?
Absolutely. the recommendation is we shouldn't be consuming more than 150 grams of carbohydrates in any 24-hour period.
That's very small amount.
That is very small indeed. But you can get around that by increasing your fiber intake, eating foods that are rich in fiber. Again, the vegetables, celery, broccoli, cabbages, and so on. Plenty of them, or a lot of them, are very, very rich in fiber. And the good thing about fiber is it slows down digestion.
Okay.
So if you include fiber in your diet, and various authorities use various ways of describing it. In the UK, we tend to use that you divide your plate into 3 portions. One portion, 1/3 should be carbohydrate. The other third maybe a little bit of protein. Then the bulk of it should be fiber, vegetables. Yeah. So if we do that, it's very, very easy to train your digestive tract to get used to that. And you will be amazed how quickly you get used to that. There is another interesting phenomenon, which I'm sure we will come to later on in the show, which is called intermittent fasting. Oh. Now we are dealing with portion sizes. So once you do that, just include more fibrous foods. Fiber is slow digestion. It can take up to 8 hours in certain instances. So you will not feel hungry over that period. And then you realize very quickly that your body actually functions better with less carbohydrates than we thought. And we tend to think that sugar is the main fuel for our brain. Reality couldn't be further from the truth. Our brain actually prefers other sources of fuel like oils than sugar. And if you start to deprive yourself of sugars or limit the amounts that you take, then your body naturally converts oils and other things into ketones, which is like the nuclear fuel equivalent of our environment for the brain. It's much cleaner, much more efficient, and your body functions far, far better, and you will feel healthier overall.
We'll have to get you back again, because these are such important messages. So let's be clear about the portions, because I'm, again, prior to coming here, discussing it during the week with my colleagues, I realized my meal plate, or I don't have the plate handy, I'm sorry, is quite a large plate. And clearly, it's way above the 150 grams you've mentioned. Okay, and he actually talked about slightly a larger amount, but I go with your 150 grams. And I suppose we would, as you say, need to. It's a gradual reduction in quantum, and as you say, an increase in the amount of fiber will enable to compensate for the volume loss, you know. And I think I believe I understand how that is achievable. I believe that's unachievable. And so before we move away from this area, and if we be clear, there is a recent YouTube personality who recently passed, named Kevin R. Samuels. When discussing health issues with, this is based in the US, but when discussing health issues with both men and women in the community over there. And what he noted is looked at the relative weight of men and women. Okay. And what he noted, of course, is that we have a problem of obesity in the US. Most certainly it affects us here, and most certainly in the Caribbean, where I was born. And what I'm trying to understand here is relative weight between men and women. Okay. And what he noted, a woman rang up, said she was in perfect health, and he noted that, or she recalled, she's 5 feet 3 inches. Okay. She was a dress size 10 or 14, I think 14, okay, but weighed 180 pounds, okay. His immediate response is that you weigh more than a man of equivalent height, okay. And I suppose this was an area which I was unsure, and I have done some research, but maybe you can give us some additional light. I'm 6'1". I know I'm put you on the spot, but you're the expert. What would you consider to be the ideal weight for someone who's 6'1" and male, and someone who's of a mature age? What would be the ideal weight, do you think?
Yeah, great question. There is a measure called body mass index, and that is the guide that healthcare professionals follow. Body mass index is effectively your height, your weight divided by your height, your weight in kilograms divided by your height in centimeters. So, for example, not just your height, but your height squared in centimeters. Yeah, and it should give you a figure between 19 and 24.5. Some experts would go up to 24.9, and that is classed as a healthy range. If you are 25 or above, you would be obese. And if you reach up to 27, 29, then you're probably morbidly obese. Yeah, so that is the guide that we tend to follow. Some people can be deceived. They will be slightly overweight, but they feel generally fine, and they don't think there is anything wrong with that. That can be deceptive, because we know that a little bit excess body weight puts more strain on the heart, because your heart never stops pumping. It keeps working. And the more weight you have, the more work it does, because it has to pump blood to every cell and tissue in your body. So it puts that little bit extra strain on the heart. Obviously, you won't feel it instantly, but with time, it starts to cause health problems, and those are very, very clear. And people with slightly higher than normal body mass index are more likely to develop cardiovascular diseases. And it's even worse if their diet and lifestyle is also not optimal. They don't follow the right guidelines, they don't exercise regularly, they don't eat correctly, their cholesterol levels are not what it should be. And chances are someone who is slightly overweight is more likely to fall ill, say, in 10, 15, 25 years' time than somebody who is normal weight, or whose body mass index falls between 19 and 24.
Thank you. And as I said, I had discussions about this particular subject, particularly in relation to women. And in some cases, women appear to be very shapy, but with slightly bulging either hips, bellies, or top parts of their bodies. And it appears initially to be, almost shapely, until you realize they're carrying enormous amount of weight. Indeed, men, particularly on their girth, large girth. But it's awareness levels that I'm disturbed by. So if I may then, just to take this further, because I want to encourage those who are listening to take the next step. So how you describe the formula used, and you're the expert. Sounds complicated for the ordinary person. Where would you suggest someone goes to get a real assessment? Should they buy one of these sophisticated weights in order to get this BMI assessment? Should they go to their doctor? Are there specialists, nutritionists they can visit? What action would you suggest a person who's unsure of their current BMI? Where should they seek that advice from?
Very good question. First and foremost, your GP would be a great point of call. And most GPs have calculators of BMI on their computer systems. So if you go in And especially if it's you're registering with them for the first time, they do take certain basic measurements, and that would include your height, your weight, your blood pressure, and some may go further to do blood tests and things like that. It's all to get a picture of what might be going on within you, and it's important that we do that. If you've been registered at a practice for some time, even if your GP doesn't encourage you to take those measurements, certain practices and even certain pharmacies have these stations where you can go in, you stand on a machine, and it measures your weight. It calculates your height by some infrared sensor at the very top above your head, and it can calculate your BMI for you, and it actually gives a printout as well. Certain GP practices have these that you can do for free. In pharmacies, you may pay a small amount of money. You slot some coins into the machine, and it does all of that for you. If you don't have that, you can simply do this at home. Measure your weight in kilograms and divide that by your height squared centimeters. So if you're 180, 176 centimeters, square that and divide your weight by that, and that should give you your BMI. Yeah, so it's a very, very simple thing that we can all do. And it's important to know the normal parameters. 19, if you're below 19, you're underweight. If you're above 25, you're obese. So if you fall between 19 and 25, that is exactly where we want to be. And if you can then take the right measures to make sure you fall within that healthy range.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I want to encourage those who are listening, particularly those who are young. But I've seen so many young people with protruding body part, best way of describing it, I think. And some particularly young ladies who believe that the protruding body parts are a source of amorous intention by young men. I have to say to them, that is not the case. It is not the case. And you're storing up long-term health problems. Okay, and I know quite a number are listening to this or will listen to the recordings. I'd like them to take what you've just said seriously. You're the professional, not me. Take it from yourself, Elijah. Elijah is the professional. Listen to what he said, and he has no interest. There's no financial gain from him by him, but giving you this what is really sound piece of advice. Okay, so let me say that. There's two more questions, and then we're going to talk about the further solutions. Okay, and we'll get on to fasting and what you do as an organization. Two other questions that I want to put to you by way of clarification. You touched on it a moment ago. I want to look at cholesterol, how to manage cholesterol level in our bodies. Okay, look, I'm a novice, but I understand cholesterol is primarily gained from fatty foods. Could be meat or dairy products, or it could be some oils. I'm even told that avocado could be harmful to us. Just give us some idea where we are absorbing cholesterol, what's the impact on our bodies, and how can we mitigate the effects, please?
Fantastic question. Cholesterol is in fact one of the most misunderstood medical myths out there. And I say so because a lot of us believe that eating various fats and oils and and even eggs, especially the yolk, is bad for us. The science doesn't seem to corroborate that. And what we are finding is, and a lot of people may be shocked to hear this, there are two types of cholesterol. There is what we call the LDL, low density lipoprotein cholesterol, which is the bad cholesterol. And there is what we call HDL, high density lipoprotein cholesterol, which is the good cholesterol. Now, the interesting thing is, whatever your diet is, if you have a ratio of 1/3 good to whatever your total cholesterol is, you have no problems.
Oh.
And another interesting fact is the good cholesterol is only got from diet. It's gotten through our diet. If you're not getting sufficient levels of good cholesterol, and the sources include the omega type oils from fish oils, from healthy vegetables, olive oil, and so on and so forth. So if you're not getting sufficient levels of those, your liver then synthesizes the bad cholesterol to compensate.
Oh.
And this is what most people don't understand. So all those things about avoiding egg, the bad oils, and so on. And I must say, certain oils are bad for health, especially the so-called trans fats. And those are the highly processed vegetable oils that are overheated, overused, especially in fast food restaurants where the same oil is used repeatedly to a point where the goodness in it is destroyed. And maybe for the geeks amongst us, I'll try to explain.
Yes.
The goodness in oil is, and what also makes it unsaturated fatty acids, is what we call the double bonds in the organic structure. Yeah. So if the double bond is on the 3rd carbon atom, that is what we call the omega-3 type oils. If it's on the 6th, it's for the omega-6s. If it's on the 9th, it's the omega-9s. Now, omega-6s and omega-9s are very, very prevalent in our diet. They are almost exclusively present in all the oils that we consume. They are also the pro-inflammatory type of oils. So if you're consuming far too much of those,
what does that mean? What does that mean? Pro-inflammatory, just so clear.
Yeah, what that means is it increases your inflammatory tendencies within the body. So you're more likely to develop inflammatory conditions if you consume most of those. The omega-3 type oils, which a lot of us don't get enough of, are anti-inflammatory.
I see, yes.
Yeah, and those are the healthier oils that we should be consuming a lot more of. Yeah, so if people get good levels of omega-3 oils, then it tries to cancel out the deleterious effects of the omega-6s and omega-9s. And so it balances your inflammatory profile to a point where you are less likely to have cholesterol oxidation. Yeah, and that is what the bad cholesterol does. It gets oxidized, it's easily oxidized, and then starts to form plaque deposits inside blood vessels. And that is where the problem begins. So the key is...
How can we mitigate now then? Mitigate the effects of these cholesterols?
Yeah. So the key is consume more omega-3 fat oils, fatty acids, and also include the anti-inflammatory or the antioxidant foods. Again, your brightly colored fresh fruits and vegetables. They all contain important entities that help to mop up free radicals from our bodies, and so balance out your inflammatory profile to a more healthier version.
Thank you. That's very clear and very helpful. I see we've got a caller on the line. I haven't officially opened the line, but if you don't mind, I've just noticed, of course, it's nearly, the person's gone. But I was about to take the call, nevertheless. I realised the time. You've been captivating, Elijah, so I was going to take the call. And the caller wants to call back, you can. And in fact, I would open the line, then we'll get on to what you do as a specialist pharmacist, nutritional pharmacist. I know you specialize in providing health products to the community, and we want to get onto that. But I'll officially open the line. So it's 0208 133 5616. I repeat, 0208 133 5616, and I will start taking calls. I'm just conscious that our guests are usually so, as you can see, Elijah, so well informed that you provide a truly captivating experience. And so if I may move on straight away in that case and to how we defend ourselves, what actions, how we can take those deliberate action to protect ourselves. You describe exercise being critically important. You emphasize that we must consume appropriate amounts of water, okay? And of course, you've also broadly outlined how we can mitigate the effects of our both mental, spiritual, and taking control of our general outlook to the world, which is, I think, from a psychological point of view, so important. But I'm aware that you specialize in providing a range of health products. You may wish to just give us examples of a number of them and what their intended purpose might be. And I'll leave that to you to describe as you wish.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. My special interest led me to investigate a few nutritional products out there on the market, and there is a very, very wide range, some of which are not worth spending your hard-earned cash on, and I'll explain why.
Thank you.
Anything you consume is only useful if it is bioavailable, and that fanciful term simply means reaches your bloodstream. So if you consume any product, be it food, nutritional supplement, medicine, if it doesn't reach your bloodstream, it's as good as useless. And there have been studies carried out where people...
Just a moment, I'm really sorry. I believe we do have the caller still on the line. Is the caller still on the line? Good morning. With number ending 5436. Good morning. Oh, maybe not then. Continue, sorry. Continue.
Yes, so there have been studies that discovered that certain supplements we take in by mouth and pass them out at the rear end, where you can still read the labels. They've not dissolved at all, let alone get into your bloodstream. So choice is really, really important. The question is, how do we know which supplements are good for us, which ones actually reach our bloodstream, and which ones are made correctly? So I carried out a research over the years, and I settled on supplements made by one particular manufacturer. I will not mention it on the show, but if people are really interested or want clues on how to identify a good quality supplement, then I can have pointers in that direction. Yeah, and these I've been using myself personally for the last 13 years or so. I've recommended them to a number of people, and person after person comes back with very positive feedback. As a matter of fact, sometimes you don't even need feedback from them. You can see positive changes in them. Their skin glows, their energy levels increase, they start to function better, they look younger, and so on. So it's amazing what we can do. And sometimes you don't actually need supplements. Just eat correctly. Include the right amount of fruits and vegetables in your diet. Exercise regularly. Drink plenty of water. Our bodies are not made of 65 to 70% water by accident. And we have to maintain those hydration levels. Some of us do not even drink water at all. We wake up in the morning, we reach out for the cup of coffee, then we drink fruit juices or fizzy drinks all day long. Well, I won't mention names. Yep. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, those are clearly not healthy drinks that we should be indulging in. Yeah, but if you can just drink pure, clean, filtered water, you'll be doing yourself a lot of favors. And the science is undisputed. there is so much evidence that good hydration alone does so much good to our health. It just doesn't make sense if people are still not following that.
Thank you. That's very, very clear. I'm just going to just say again, I'll give out the number again, and the last caller with number ending 5436, feel free to call again. I'm sorry if I forced you to put the phone down. And I'll give out the number again. I'm going to be far more generous today, which is 0208 133 5616. Elijah, can I now just talk to you about the fasting, intermittent fasting, which indeed I engage in myself, both of you. First of all, describe what it is and the potential benefits or indeed some occasional negatives that we might experience. What is intermittent fasting? Why would we do such a thing?
Yes. Intermittent fasting is simply regulating your daily eating such that you take all your needed calories within an 8-hour period, so that the rest of the 16 hours that we have in our 24-hour period, you don't take in any calories at all. Some people can get away with certain forms of calories which are sourced from the healthy oils, but no sugar whatsoever during the fasting period. And the advantages are numerous. Contrary to popular belief, intermittent fasting actually improves your gastrointestinal health, because people think if you're not eating over that period, you have stomach acids and so on attacking your bodily tissues. Nothing could be further from the truth. I stumbled across intermittent fasting almost by accident, and I cannot describe the benefits enough. People see me and ask how old you might be. I tell them to guess, and nobody has ever guessed my age right. They tend to give me at least 10 years younger than I actually am. And I attribute that purely to intermittent fasting. Your energy levels are up, and the most amazing thing is the clarity of thought.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Once you start to engage in that, the very, very first indicator is your thought becomes so clear, it's almost magical. And we've started to drill into the science behind it, and it's what I talked about earlier. Once you're intermittent fasting and over 8 hours, you don't get any sugar at all in your diet. And by the way, when insulin is released into your bloodstream, its effects last up to 8 hours. Insulin is also the hormone that encourages weight gain. So if you're constantly snacking on sugars, you are constantly inviting insulin into your bloodstream. Even if you eat small amounts at a time, the fact that there is constantly some insulin in your bloodstream will encourage weight gain. And that's the surest way of cutting through that is intermittent fasting, because that ensures you go above that 8-hour window without any glucose in your bloodstream. And then your body is now forced to burn any excess fatty stores you may have in your body for fuel. And guess what? It converts that to ketones, which I mentioned earlier is the cleanest and the brain's preferred fuel. And that is one of the reasons why people intermittent fasting start to get that very, very clear thought. Your brain functions like a brand new engine. And it's amazing. It's amazing. If you're somebody who engages in a lot of mental activities, you will absolutely enjoy intermittent fasting. The benefits are numerous. One last thing I'd like to say on that is for people who intermittent fast, it improves what we call BDNF levels by a whopping 2,000%. BDNF is brain-derived neurotropic factor, and that is the hormone of youthfulness. Yeah, so if that level increases by 2,000%, guess what happens? You're going to feel more youthful, you're going to be healthier, and your bodily functions will just amaze you.
100%. You've described my experiences perfectly. I have to tell you, I always begin by saying I feel really alive, I feel energetic, and gosh, I have a lifestyle which requires that I maintain the peak of performance, physical performance, therefore mental performance as well. So, oh yeah, I would. But I've tended not to recommend intermittent fasting on the show, but I wondered, and this is my cautionary term, I always thought that a person, before they embark upon it, should seek clinical or medical advice, just to make sure that their bodies can tolerate the intermittent fasting. They may have a undiagnosed condition which might be excessive. You tell, am I right in that, my cautiousness, Elijah?
You're absolutely right. And we strongly recommend that people who are doing it for the first time should follow a clinician's guidance. The main reason is there are certain medical conditions where fasting can be harmful to your health. So it doesn't mean you can't fast at all, but it needs to be a gradual process. So you start maybe fasting a few hours at a time and slowly increase it gradually to a point where you become used to it and your body can then function without any warning signs. But it's absolutely possible that anyone can intermittent fast, including diabetics. And as a matter of fact, it's one of the surest methods of reversing type 2 diabetes. If you include intermittent fasting in the mix, you absolutely regain your control over insulin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that is what we are finding. And people who have followed our guidance, are reversing type 2 diabetes. Yeah, something that we thought wasn't possible medically.
Right. Okay. That's fascinating. I hadn't fully appreciated that. Again, but I'm always quite cautious of these matters. But I've seen at least a number of people who've engaged in intermittent fasting, but they hadn't had a medical check beforehand, and simply caused a problem for them. And so I've been very cautious to date. But noting what you've described, I think this is an important point. Let's take this call. Good morning, Corda. Good morning, Corda.
Hello.
Good morning, Corda. Can you hear us all right?
Yes, I could hear you.
Right here.
Good morning. Elijah's just speaking with regard to diabetes and the effect. Hello?
Yes, we're listening. We are listening. Yep, we can.
Okay. He's just speaking with regards to diabetes, which I'm just discovering and trying to see how best to alleviate this. And he's given some fantastic pointers with regards to, what we should be eating, etc., which I'm really thankful for. Is there any way that with this information, because obviously we need to know a bit more, yeah? Like how to alleviate this in some way, shape or form. The type 2 diabetes, can it actually go, or does it stay with you for life?
Oh, that's the question, isn't it, Elijah? I think you've answered this one, but repeat what you said earlier on. It's it's a recurring question. Yeah, it's a recurring question.
Type 2 diabetes is 100% reversible.
Wow.
And by that, let me be very clear. People who have been diagnosed as type 2 diabetic can reverse it and become healthy again and not be diabetic any longer. Right. We have a number of examples around the world who have followed various methods and achieved that. And their doctors have confirmed through repeated tests that they are no longer diabetic. and for that matter, no longer need to be on the tablets or the injectables, insulin, and so on and so forth. So yes, it is absolutely reversible. And you need to know how to do that safely so it doesn't cause you problems. But with the right guidance, you can be free from that very deadly disease.
Right. Corda, did you hear that response?
Yes, I can. It was a bit fuzzy, I must admit.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
No, I've got the gist of what you said, and that's absolutely fantastic. Because I must admit, I just recently started exercise as well, and a bit more conscious of what I'm eating, as he has stated, and I feel the difference in me. You know, energy-wise.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, initially, yes, as you start to do the, just exercise for you. And I think that's one of the things that perhaps we don't do as black men and women so much.
Exercise enough. Exercise enough. Yeah.
And that is the exercise enough. We find other things to do, but we don't do that. And, our bodies is our temple.
Okay.
If anything goes wrong with that, it affects every single thing in our lives.
It does. Maybe if I may ask a further question for you to Elijah, because Elijah has begun to describe that it is reversible, but where should the caller go to obtain that advice to reverse the condition, type 2 diabetes, which is what's been described?
Great question. And this is a little bit controversial.
Okay.
What I'm about to say is a little
controversial here.
Given that I am a professional pharmacist and I make my living through dispensing medications and advice and so on and so forth, I will also tell you that the pharmaceutical industry thrives from repeat use of medication. So it's not in their interest for anyone to be cured of a chronic illness like diabetes. So they will do everything to make sure you continue to be on medication for the rest of your life. Is that sustainable?
Indeed.
One, it worsens your health with time, and the costs of diabetes alone to healthcare authorities around the world will shock you. Our NHS alone spends a whopping 10 to 11% of its budget, annual budget, on just that one disease, diabetes.
What 12, 13 billion pounds, you mean? Oh my God.
Absolutely, yes, on diabetes alone. So if we can take additional measures to reduce people's need of part of that budget, and that includes using healthier alternatives, lifestyle changes, and they can free themselves of that illness, I think we'll be doing ourselves a lot of good. That will be savings that can then go into more serious conditions like treatments of cancer, various surgical processes, and so on. So I see it as a win-win situation, even though it's controversial, as I said it. So you may not get very good advice through healthcare professionals, especially if you go through your GP and things like that. But people like me, and there is a growing number of us, are available for private consultation and guidance. Personally, I don't charge for any consultation, but I will guide you and I will possibly recommend certain things that you may choose to buy from me, or you can source them yourself. That is entirely your choice. That doesn't stop me from imparting my knowledge or sharing what my findings with you. So
brilliant. Now I'm going to keep the call on the line. I'm going to ask you, please, because I'm conscious of our time as well, Elijah, are you able therefore to either provide a telephone number, email address, or website address for the benefit of the listeners who may wish to contact you?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a Twitter handle which is @eTmob. So uppercase E and T, and then 2 I's M-O-B.
Yep.
That's my Twitter handle. I can be reached on email, elijah.timob, which is my first name and last name, T-I-I-M-O-B,
Yep.
at iCloud.com.
iCloud, yep.
And you can also reach me on my private mobile phone or cell phone, as they call it in the Americas.
Yes.
And the number is 07702
07702
350026.
26. Excellent. Thank you. Now, Corda, I've written all that down, and I've taken note of your number, and I will text it to you to make sure you have his contact details.
Can I just say one other quick thing?
Of course.
That the viewers also, even if you are diagnosed with diabetes and they say take this drug, because they did that to me, whereby I had to take insulin initially, and yes, it was scary. However, it was for a short period of time, and there was another set of tablets that I needed to take. But these particular tablets that they gave me was causing an upset tummy.
Okay.
Now, many of us, we just take the medication, etc., and don't question it. But as I went further to question it, saying, no, I don't feel comfortable with this, they actually said, okay, I'll put you on the more expensive medication, which has actually been fantastic.
Right. Okay.
In the sense with regards to what side effects.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that piece of input, and I suspect that you will benefit from making direct contact with Elijah. And he said he doesn't charge, but he may be able to recommend appropriate alternatives. So.
Fantastic. Elijah, thank you so very much for all your advice. It's been absolutely phenomenal. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Corda. Thank you for the call. Thank you. Thank you for the call. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Well, there you are. At least someone who's responding positively to this. And it's really important. I know there are quite a few out there, judging by the texts I've got here, who are listening carefully. So your contact details, I will include in our future mail out, so that it will go out to more than 100,000 people, and of course the repeats of the YouTube video of this conversation will also go out as well. So it will be vitally important. Are there, and this content we've now got maybe 4 or 5 minutes, no more than that, are there particular messages in the short period we now have you wish to communicate to the community? Do you feel it's important the community hears, Elijah?
Absolutely. And it's very simple. The human body is designed to heal itself of practically all ailments. And I'll give an example. If you break a bone, best doctors in the world will try and put the pieces together and maybe try to make it as straight as it could be. But ultimately, it is your body that provides all the building blocks to join the pieces again together and make the bone whole again. So your body knows precisely what to do. Our part of the equation is to provide our bodies with the building blocks it needs to be able to do that job. And those includes the healthy foods that we consume, because if you're eating all the unhealthy stuff, your body doesn't have all the correct building blocks. Remember, food is not just carbohydrates, neither is it just protein, nor fats and oils. It also includes very, very important phytonutrients such as flavonoids, carotenoids, cruciferous vegetables, and so on. All of these things nature provided us for a reason, and science has corroborated that by encouraging us to eat as wide a variety of diet as possible. And the reason is that the more we get these nutrients into us, the healthier we are and the better prepared we are to fight any ailment that comes across us. And that includes even infectious diseases such as the dreaded COVID.
Indeed.
And again, I'm a living example.
Oh, right.
Both at home
Yes.
and at work, practically every person has contracted COVID. I haven't.
Oh, wow. Okay. There you are.
And
there's the lesson.
I attribute that solely to lifestyle.
Right.
Because I don't joke with what I put in my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very, very choosy with my food, and I ensure I get the widest possible variety of protective phytonutrients, and it hasn't failed me so far.
I know you are 100% correct. It is my intention, I imagine by September, to launch an international show to highlight the African medicines and traditional medicines that probably kind of come from the continent. It's far more complex a show to put together, it seems, but I want to include as many countries from the continent as possible, health specialists, traditional healers from the continent who understand the power and medicinal values of food, those natural ingredients in the environment. And I would definitely invite you to participate in that particular program. It will be an extra long program, and my last attempt went on for 4 hours. I'm not sure we'll go 4 hours this time, but I'm confident the information that brothers and elders like yourselves possess, sisters and elder women possess, is enormous. We have the solutions to all conditions within the community. We just need to harness it for the benefit of the community. I'm going to give a further shout out for your contact details. I'm going to ask you to recite your contact details once more, according to this listener. He was unable to write it all down quickly enough. Can I ask you, please, Elijah, just to repeat your email address, Elijah.Timo. In fact, you say it just so we're clear.
Yeah, so it's Elijah.Timo, and maybe I should spell it for.
Please, yes.
So Elijah is ELIJAH. Timo is TII, Tango India, Mike Oscar Bravo, at iCloud.com.
Okay. And your mobile number, please, one more time.
Mobile number is 07702 350026. So that is 07702 350026.
Thank you very much. Now then, I'm almost out of time, but as usual, the call is coming to the very last moment. I'm going to take this very quick call. I've got less than 5 minutes. Corner, good morning to you. Do you have a question for my guest?
I do indeed. Grand Risings, Brother Demotivator.
Thank you.
Greetings to you. And just honor and respect, Grand Rising, to your guest speaker, to Brother Elijah. Apologies, Demotivator, for the last minute. I know it's typical, but it was literally 1 minute.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Having to just put across two things to Brother Elijah. First of all, gratitude, giving thanks to you, Brother Demotivator, for bringing this brother onto the show, like you've done with many other sisters and brothers who are in the health industry, but in the, if I can say, right ways of the natural elements from the earth, and giving us this service. And this is the most important, because I can sense it, that Brother Elijah cares. That's the overriding about Africans, and I guess humanity as well, genuinely. And I give thanks for him. I'm so grateful he's here and he exists. The second thing I just had which was a simple question to Brother Elijah in giving thanks, is if he can highlight exactly what he needs, and hopefully simply, and sorry it's a big question, but Brother Elijah, what do you need from the people? What do you need from the people in order to allow and enable you to be able to help more and more people, those who are able? And what is a simple thing that we could do, if it is possible, to help you help more of our community?
Wonderful question. Wonderful question. Elijah, you've maybe got a minute.
Question.
Yes.
Yeah. In a short one word, I think is publicity.
Yes.
Because the more people hear about these sorts of talks, the more they will learn and take action to preserve their health going forward. And if I just say this, it may sound a little scary or something of the sort, but I genuinely believe that the Black race is fast becoming an endangered species. And if we don't take actions like this to protect ourselves, it may not be tomorrow, may not be in a year's time or even a decade's time. Surely we are becoming extinct. And one of the best ways we can preserve ourselves is through sharing of information like this.
Yes.
So let this kind of message go viral, let people hear about it, and obviously reach out to professionals and other health experts or enthusiasts like myself. I'm by all means not a lone figure. There are numerous people who think and act like myself. We just need to find them. And I'm sure we will all do what we can to ensure our people are not dying prematurely. And most importantly, we are leading our lives, the longest possible lifespans, the healthiest we can be. That is all that I think we need to do. And
thank you very much. And thank you, Caller, Brother Nat, indeed, for that call. Really useful question. I'll share with you Elijah's contact details later on. Thank you for the call. Thank you for the call. I'm out of time now. Okay, thank you. Pleasure. And Elijah, thank you very much. That was an information-rich program, and I know many will benefit from the knowledge you've shared. And I sincerely hope that listeners and viewers contact you, and I hope you will continue to share the good works, and you will benefit, because your benefit is our benefit. Elijah, thank you so much for what has been a truly inspiring interview. Thank you, and hopefully all of your work is finished there in your offices. I hope that you have a good day. But if you need us, if we can help in any way, please, I'm always available. You are welcome here at any time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for
very much. Good day, everybody. We're 10 o'clock. It's now up for Sister Shanice, the Solutions Finder. She will inspire you further. She is a tremendous person. I hope those who listen to this show will continue to listen to the Sister Shanice show, which appears immediately after mine. But until then, thank you. See you again next week. Thank you for being a wonderful group of people. Take care. Until the next time, I remain the motivator, where we translate our words into action. And remember, success is ours.